Hey guys, tonight we are stepping back in time, way back, to a place where the air smells of wood smoke, damp earth, and just a hint of trouble brewing. We're going to drop you right into the worn leather shoes of a woman in a medieval European village. And let's be honest, given the circumstances, your survival odds aren't exactly stellar. You might not even make it through the first week without accidentally offending someone important, or, being blamed for the milk souring. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's always fascinating to see where everyone's listening from. Drop me a comment below with your city and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sun is low in the sky, casting long, tired shadows across the rutted track that serves as the main path through your village. It's the kind of golden late afternoon light that makes everything look softer, more peaceful than it really is. The air is thick with the familiar sense of your world, the sharp tang of wood smoke from a dozen wattle and daub chimneys, the sweet, earthy smell of hay from the common barn, and the ever-present, pungent aroma of livestock. You shift the weight of the wicker basket on your hip. It's not heavy, just awkward. Inside are a few handfuls of late-season berries and some sturdy greens you found near the creek. Your small village is nestled in a gentle valley, a cluster of perhaps 30 or 40 households huddled together for safety and necessity. Beyond the cottages, the land is a patchwork quilt of greens and browns. You can see the three massive fields that sustain you all, a testament to a system that feels as old, resting, its dark soil turned over and waiting for next year's planting. Another is bristling with the stubble of the recent wheat harvest, and the third is still green with peas and beans, plants that, as your grandmother used to say, give back to the soil what the grain takes away. This is the rhythm of your life, the three-field system that dictates every season, every meal, every hope for the coming winter. You walk past the small stone church, its shadow falling coolly across the path. Father Alaric, the village priest, is standing near the doorway. He is a stern man, his face a permanent mask of pious disapproval. He doesn't look at you, but you feel his gaze anyway, a heavy weight on your shoulders. You lower your eyes and quicken your pace slightly. In a place the small priest's opinion is currency, and you can't afford to be in his debt. A few steps further, a group of women are gathered around the central well, their chatter buzzing like bees. As you approach, the conversation falters, dying into an awkward silence. You offer a small, tight-lipped nod, which is returned by only one or two of them. The others just stare, their expressions unreadable. You've always been a little on the outside of their circle. You don't gossip much, and you spend more time in the woods than is considered normal. This distance has never bothered you before. Today, for some reason, it feels less like a choice and more like a verdict. Historians are still debating just how much real power a woman like you, a widow without a son, truly possessed. The official records written by men like Father Alaric would paint a picture of utter dependence. But the truth is more complex. There's an informal, unspoken power that flows between the women of the village, a network of shared chores, whispered advice, and herbal remedies. It's a quiet strength, but a fragile one. And lately, you feel your connection to it fraying. As you near your own cottage at the very edge of the village, the smell of your neighbor's cooking wafts over. It's the smell of pottage, the perpetual stew that bubbles away over countless halls. It's one of those funny little details of life here. The pot is never fully emptied each day. Whatever is on hand, a turnip, a handful of barley, a few tough greens is added to the mix. It means there's always something hot to eat, but it also means today's dinner tastes a lot like yesterday's, and the day before that. A constant, simmering reminder of just getting by. Finally, you reach your door. The heavy wood groans as you push it open. Inside, it's dim and cool. The single room is small, dominated by a packed earth floor, a low sleeping pallet stuffed with straw, and a simple hearth. But it is yours. It is your sanctuary. You set your basket down on the rough-hewn table, the silence of the cottage a welcome relief from the unspoken tensions of the village. For a moment, With the door shut and the fading sunlight filtering through a small, shuttered window, there is peace. But as the shadows deepen outside, a small, cold knot of unease settles in your stomach. It's a feeling you can't quite name, a sense that the familiar, comforting rhythm of your world is about to change. You let out a long, slow breath, the tension easing from your shoulders as you begin to unpack the basket. The berries go into a small clay bowl, their dark juice staining your fingertips. The greens you set aside for tonight's meager meal. But beneath them, carefully wrapped in a damp linen cloth, is the real reason for your walk in the woods. You gently unwrap your treasures, laying them out on the wooden table. To an outsider, it's just a collection of weeds. But to you, each one has a name, a purpose, a story. There's a sprig of yarrow, its feathery leaves perfect for staunching a cut or easing a fever. Beside it lies a thick, hairy comfrey root, which you'll mash into a poultice for old Thomas' swollen knee. He didn't ever ask for it directly, of course, but his wife would trade you a bit of cheese for the devil's root that works wonders. And there are strips of willow bark, which you know to chew on for aches and pains, a secret passed down from your mother who learned it from hers. This is your secret. Not a dark, malicious one, but a quiet, green knowledge that lives in your memory. In a world where a doctor is a rare and expensive myth for villagers like yours, and where Father Alaric's prayers seem to do little for a festering wound, this is the real medicine. It's a knowledge held mostly by women, passed down in whispers while stirring pots and mending clothes. You've used it sparingly, secretly, to ease the suffering of your neighbors, a soothing tea for a colicky baby, a salve for a burn. They accept it, grateful but wary, taking care never to speak of it in the open. For the line between a healer and a witch is perilously thin, drawn not in ink but in suspicion. You close your eyes and can almost feel your mother's hands guiding your own. She's the one who first showed you how to find the long word, with its speckled leaves. See how it looks like a sickened lump, Shed whispered, her voice smelling of wood smoke and dried lavender. God marks his creations to show us their purpose. This idea, the doctrine of signatures, was the very heart of her teachings. A plant's appearance was a divine map to its use. Red juice of the bloodroot for ailments of the blood, the smooth, brain-like surface of a walnut for the head. It was a simple, elegant faith in a world designed with hidden kindness. You pick up a small, smooth stone and begin to crush the comfrey root, the rhythmic thudding a comforting sound in the quiet cottage. The work is familiar grounding. As you work, you think about the church's position on all this. Historical scholars are still trying to unravel the tangled relationship between the church and folk medicine. Was it truly seen as a remnant of paganism, a dangerous heresy to be stomped out, or was it often tolerated out of sheer necessity, a kind of dawn task? Don't tell poor who had no other recourse. Father Alaric, you suspect, leans firmly towards the heresy side of the argument. He speaks of God's will, of suffering as a test of faith. To him, your attempts to ease that suffering might look like meddling with God's plan, using knowledge that doesn't come from the holy books. That's the fear that gnaws at you. Your knowledge doesn't come from a book at all. It comes from the earth, from observation, from the collective memory of generations of women who listened to the whispers of the forest. There's a strange and little-known belief, a whisper you once heard from a traveling tinker, that some plants, like the mandrake, scream when pulled from the earth, and to hear it is to die. You don't believe such tales. Your knowledge is practical, not magical. But you know that in the minds of others, the practical can easily curdle into the fantastical, the helpful into the sinister. You finish preparing the poultice, wrapping the sticky, fibrous mash in a clean piece of linen. You'll leave it on the widow Elspeth's doorstep after dark, a silent offering. She'll know it's for her husband's knee. It's a transaction built on trust and desperation. But as you look at the simple remedy on your table, the knot of unease from earlier Titans, the same hands that repaired this healing balm could, in the wrong light, under the wrong circumstances, be seen as hands that work dark magic. Your secret, your precious inheritance of knowledge, suddenly feels less like a gift and more like a heavy, fragile stone you carry in your pocket, one that could either save a life or drag you to the bottom of the river. The silence in your cottage is no longer peaceful. It's the silence of a secret waiting to be discovered. The feeling of unease lingers, clinging to you like the damp morning mist that often blankets the valley. It's a subtle shift, something you feel in the air more than you can see. The summer had been long and good, but now as autumn begins to bleed its colors into the leaves, a new kind of quiet has fallen over the village. It's not a peaceful quiet. It's a strained, watchful silence. It began with the rain, or rather, the lack of it. The late summer showers that should have fattened the beans and plumped the last of the apples never came. The creek, usually a gurgling, cheerful presence at the edge of the woods, has dwindled to a sluggish, muddy trickle. The well, the heart of the village, requires more effort for every bucket hauled up, its water tasting faintly of earth and minerals. You see the worry etched on the faces of the men as they look to the cloudless, pale blue sky. A brew harvest is one thing, a manageable hardship. But a failing well is a threat to the very soul of the village. Then came the sickness. It started with the livestock. Old man Hemlock's best milk cow, the pride of his small herd, was found one morning lying listless in the field, its breath coming in shallow rasps. It was dead by nightfall. Soon after, 2 of the miller's sheep were found near the stream, their wool matted, their bodies unnaturally still. People began whispering. They cleansed the barn with smoke from blessed herbs provided by Father Alaric and hung charms over their doorways. Whatever it was didn't seem to notice. This is the grim reality of your time. The line between life and death is razor thin, and when things go wrong, the search for a reason becomes frantic. Historians refer to this as a crisis mentality. When a community is faced with inexplicable threats like drought or plague, their worldview, which is steeped in concepts of divine will and supernatural influence, demands an explanation. God is either rewarding or punishing. If it's punishment, there must be a cause, a sin, a corruption in their midst that has invited his wrath. You feel this shift most acutely during your foraging trips. The woods, once your sanctuary, now feel different. The plants you've always relied on seem harder to find. Or maybe it's just your imagination. As you search for late-season mushrooms, you notice something strange, a ring of blackened, dead grass in a small clearing. It's what some of the old folks call a fairy ring. The common tale is that it's where fairies dance at night, and it's bad luck to step inside. You, with your practical mind, know it's likely caused by a type of fungus that spreads outwards underground, enriching the soil at its edge while depleting it in the center. It's a natural, explainable phenomenon. But, as you stand there, looking at the stark, perfect circle of decay, you feel a shiver of what the villagers must feel. It looks like a scar left by something unseen and malevolent. This is how fear works. It takes the ordinary and twists it into an omen. You back away slowly, the scientific explanation in your head doing little to soothe the primal fear that the villagers' anxiety is beginning to seed in your own heart. The aversions are becoming more pronounced. The women at the well no longer offer even a tight-lipped nod. They turn their backs completely as you approach, their conversations starting up again with a forced, deliberate cheerfulness only after you've passed. Children who once might have shyly said hello now stare with wide, suspicious eyes before being pulled away by their mothers. Your isolation is no longer just a feeling, it's becoming a physical reality, an invisible wall being built around you, brick by silent brick. One evening you overhear a snippet of conversation as you pass the alehouse. The smith, a large man whose opinion carries weight, is speaking in a low, rumbling voice. It's not natural, H.E. is saying. The drought, the sick animals, it's a curse. Something is wrong in this village. You don't need to hear the rest. You know where this path leads. When people look for a source of wrongness, they don't look at themselves. They look for someone who is different. One of the more peculiar historical theories, and it's one that's heavily debated, is that many of these local crises were actually exacerbated by early industrial pollution, even on a small scale. For instance, a new tanning process upstream or runoff from a primitive mine could poison a local water source, leading to sick livestock and people. The villagers, with no concept of microbiology or chemical contamination, would be left with only one available explanation: witchcraft. The unnatural sickness demanded an unnatural cause. Standing here in the deepening twilight, you feel the chilling logic of their fear. The world is full of invisible forces. They just happen to believe those forces are guided by malice, while you believe they are guided by nature. But in a battle of beliefs, the one held by the many always wins. The first shadow falls not with a dramatic thunderclap, but with a quiet, sickening thud. It happens on a market day, a day that should be filled with a semblance of normalcy and commerce. You've brought a small bundle of dried lavender and rosemary, hoping to trade for a bit of flour or maybe a sliver of soap. The village square is less crowded than usual, the mood subdued. The drought has left everyone with less to trade, and the air of festivity is replaced with a low hum of anxiety. You approach the miller's wife, a woman you've traded with for years. She's standing behind a trestle table laid with a few lumpy sacks of barley flour. You hold out your fragrant bundle, the familiar scent of small comfort in the tense air. "Good day, Matilda," you say, your voice softer than you intended. "Some herbs for your linens." She looks at the bundle, then at you. Her face, usually ruddy and quick to smile, is a pinched, pale mask. "We have no need for such things," she says, her voice flat. She turns away to busy herself with a sack, a clear dismissal. But it's what happens next that truly chills you. A woman standing nearby, waiting to trade for a bit of flour, mutters just loud enough for you to hear. Best not to trade with her kind. Who knows what you're really getting? Her kind. The words hang in the air between you. It's no longer about you being quiet or solitary. A new label is being silently stitched to your name. Later that day, the shadow lengthens. You're on your way back to your cottage when you see a small commotion near the church. A group of villagers is gathered around Father Alaric, who is examining a large, healthy-looking oak tree that stands in the churchyard. It's a tree that has been there for gentlest baptisms, weddings, and funerals. Or rather, it was healthy. Now, a large lower branch has inexplicably split from the trunk and crashed to the ground, its green leaves already starting to wilt. The tree is sound, you hear the carpenter say, running a hand over the fresh, white wood of the break. There was no wind. It makes no sense. Father Alaric places a hand on the wounded trunk, his expression grim. It is a sign, he proclaims, his voice carrying across the small crowd. A sign of a great sickness in the heart of our community. The forces of darkness are at work, testing our faith, striking at the very symbols of God's endurance. His eyes sweep over the gathered faces, and for a fleeting moment, you're certain they rest on you, standing at the edge of the crowd. You feel a flush of heat rise in your cheeks, a mixture of fear and indignation. It's just a branch. Trees lose branches. But you know that in their current state of mind, it's not a branch, it's a portent. It's a classic case of what modern sociologists call patternicity, the tendency to find meaningful patterns in meaningless noise. When a community is under stress, they start connecting unrelated negative events. The drought, the sick cow, and now a fallen branch are no longer separate misfortunes. They become a sequence, a narrative. And every narrative needs a villain. As you hurry away, you're reminded of a strange, almost comical piece of medieval lore you once heard. There was a belief that certain people could curdle milk or spoil butter simply by looking at it with envy or ill will. This was known as possessing an evil eye. It's a concept that historians think may have originated as a way to explain everyday spoilage in an age without refrigeration, but it quickly evolved into a tangible accusation. A woman who was old, poor, or simply disliked might be blamed when the morning's churning failed to produce butter. It sounds absurd, but in a world where your entire winter's sustenance could depend on that butter, the failure felt catastrophic, and the need to blame someone, anyone, was overwhelming. That evening, as you're trying to coax a small flame in your hearth, you hear a scratching sound at your door. You freeze. It's not the confident knock of a neighbor. It's a hesitant, almost furtive sound. You wait, your heart thumping against your ribs. The scratching comes again, more insistent this time. You slowly rise and unearth the door, opening it just a crack. It's Elspeth, the wife of the man with the swollen knee. Her face is a mess of tears and fear, her shawl pulled tightly around her head as if to hide. They're talking, she whispers, her eyes darting around the empty path behind her. About the tree. About the miller's luck turning sour after use of cheese into your hand. She presses a small, hard piece of cheese into your hand. This is the last I can bring. My Thomas says it's not safe. People are frightened. Just turns and scurries away into the darkness, a frightened mouse disappearing into the shadows. You close the door, the heavy bolt sliding home with the sound of finality. The cheese feels cold in your hand. The first shadow has fallen, and it has fallen squarely on your home. The quiet judgment has found its voice, and it's beginning to whisper your name. The whispers solidify into a pointing finger. It happens with the brutal swiftness of a summer storm, the one you'd all been praying for, but not like this. A child has fallen ill, not with a cough or a fever that you know how to soothe, but with something frightening and new. It's young Thomas, the baker's son, a boy of about 7 with bright, curious eyes. He has been struck by violent fits, his small body convulsing, his eyes rolling back in his head. The village is paralyzed with a new kind of terror. This isn't a sick cow or a broken branch. This is a child, an innocent, struck down by an unseen force. Father Alaric is summoned. He spends hours in the baker's small stuffy cottage, the scent of holy water and incense doing little to mask the smell of fear. He performs prayers. But the boy's condition only worsens. You, of course, stay far away. You know better than to go anywhere near the scene. You've heard of epilepsy, a condition described in some of the tattered scrolls a traveling scholar once showed you, but the word has no meaning here. Here it is the work of the devil. As you tend to your small, hidden patch of herbs behind your cottage, you can feel the village's fear coiling like a snake. The accusation comes from the boy's mother, a woman named Agnes, in a fit of grief and terror, standing in the village square with tears streaming down her face. She screams it. She screams that she saw you looking at her son just 2 days before, near the edge of the woods. You were gathering something, she says, your hands full of dark roots and strange leaves. She claims you gave the boy a look, not a kind look, but a sharp, lingering one. An envious one. Suddenly all the disconnected pieces snap into a terrifying whole in the minds of the villagers. Your solitary walks in the woods, your strange knowledge of plants, the way you don't gossip at the well, the fallen branch, the sick cow, your perceived slight against the miller's wife. It's a cascading logic of fear, of course. It all makes sense now. You are the rot at the heart of the village. A small crowd, emboldened by Agnes' hysterical certainty, begins to move towards your cottage at the edge of the village. It's not a mob yet, not with torches and pitchforks. It's something quieter, and in a way more menacing. It's a delegation of dread. You see them coming from your small window. Father Alaric is at the front, his face set like stone. Beside him is the baker, his own face crumpled with anguish, and the smith, his large frame a symbol of righteous, physical power. You back away from the window, your heart hammering against your ribs. There is no way to run. The knock on your door is not a knock. It's a heavy, authoritative bang that shakes the entire frame. Open in the name of God, Father Alaric's voice booms. You do nothing. You are frozen, a rabbit in the path of a wolf. The bang comes again, harder this time. We know you're in there, woman. Open up. That's the smith's voice, rough and impatient. Slowly, your limbs feeling like they're filled with sand, you move to the door and lift the heavy wooden bar. The door swings open. The faces of your neighbors are a blur of anger, fear, and a morbid, terrible curiosity. You are accused, Father Alaric says, his voice cold and devoid of any pastoral compassion, of consorting with dark forces and bringing this affliction upon the child of God, Thomas, son of Walter the baker. You open your mouth to speak, to defend yourself, but no words come out. What can you say that you were just gathering willow bark for a headache, that you feel a plant's leaves to test its texture, not to cast a spell, that the look Agnes saw was one of simple, passing observation? Your reality has no currency here. Their fear has created its own, more powerful truth. This is a scenario that played out in countless villages. Historians are still divided on the primary motivation for these accusations. Was it genuine, deeply held religious belief about the devil's work, or was it more of a social mechanism, a way for a community to displace its collective anxieties onto a convenient scapegoat? The truth is likely a messy combination of both. The fear was real, but the choice of victim was often chillingly practical. The elderly woman living alone, people on the fringes of society, were the most vulnerable. They were the easiest to sacrifice. One of the more bizarre methods of proving witchcraft, though more common in later, more formalized trials, was the search for a witch's mark or devil's mark. This was supposedly a spot on the body, a mole or a birthmark, where the devil had branded his servant. It was said to be insensitive to pain. Accusers would prick the accused's body with a pin, and if a spot was found where she didn't flinch, perhaps due to a simple callus or nerve damage, it was taken as irrefutable proof. It was a test designed to confirm a foregone conclusion. Standing in your doorway, facing the hostile eyes of people you have known your entire life, you feel the invisible net closing around you. You don't know what they will do. You only know that the finger is no longer just pointing. It is pressing hard against your chest, and behind it is the full weight of a village consumed by terror. There is no trial, not in the way you might imagine one, with a rogue judge and a chance to speak. Your trial is held right there, in the court of public opinion under the pale, unforgiving sky. It is a swift and brutal severing. Father Alaric steps forward, his black robes rustling. He holds up a small wooden crucifix, as if to ward off the evil he believes is radiating from you. Confess your sins, woman, he commands, his voice resonating with authority. Confess that you have turned your back on God and embraced the path of darkness. It is your only hope for salvation. Salvation. The word sounds like a mockery. You look past him, at the faces in the small crowd. You see Walter the baker, his eyes red-rimmed and filled with a pain so deep it has curdled into hate. You see the smith, his jaw tight with a grim satisfaction, as if HES finally found the nail that needs hammering. And you see the women from the well, their expressions a mixture of fear and a strange, almost thrilling vindication. Their long-held suspicion has been proven correct. And different was as they always suspected dangerous. I have done nothing, you whisper, your voice a dry rustle of leaves. I am not what you say. Your denial is like a drop of rain on a hot stone. It fizzles and vanishes, having made no impact. To them, your refusal to confess is not a sign of innocence, but of stubborn, demonic pride. Agnes, the boy's mother, lets out a wail. She denies it. The devil gives her strength to lie. This is the moment of your social death. You are being stripped of your identity, layer by layer. You are no longer a woman who mends her own roof, who trades herbs for cheese, who keeps to herself. You are a vessel for all their fears, your history, your personality, your quiet acts of kindness, all of it is erased, painted over with the monstrous caricature of a witch. Father Alaric makes a sign of the cross in the air. This woman, he declares, his voice ringing with finality, has brought a curse upon us. She has consorted with evil and walks in shadow. She is an abomination in the eyes of the Lord. He pauses, letting the weight of his words settle on the crowd. She may no longer live among us. She is cast out. Her home and her possessions are forfeit, to be cleansed by fire. She is to be driven from this village, never to return on pain of death. Driven out. The words are a physical blow. You look at your small cottage, the only home you have ever known. The thought of it being burned, of the smoke carrying away the last traces of your life, is a pain sharper than any physical threat. The concept of exile was a powerful tool in the medieval world. For most people, the village was their entire universe. To be cast out was not just to be made a non-person. You would have no community, no protection, no identity. It was, in many ways, considered a fate worse than a swift execution. You would be condemned to wander, to starve, or to fall prey to the very real dangers of the wilderness. The smith and another large man step forward. They don't handle you with overt violence, not yet. But their hands on your arms are firm, inescapable. They pull you away from your doorway, out into the path. You are numb, wrapped in a strange, detached calm. You watch as another man, carrying a torch from the smithy's fire, ducks into your home. A moment later, a thin curl of grey smoke escapes the thatched roof, followed by a bright, hungry tongue of flame. You hear a collective gasp from the crowd, a sound of armed terror. They are watching the physical manifestation of their fear being purged. They are cleansing themselves. A strange and disturbing historical fact is that in some regions, the ashes from the home of a condemned which were considered to have protective properties. People would sometimes collect them to sprinkle around their own homes, believing the fire that destroyed the evil could in turn be used to ward it off. The very substance of your life, reduced to a superstitious trinket. As the flames begin to roar, casting a hellish dancing light on the faces of the villagers, the men holding you begin to push you down the path, away from the village center, towards the darkening woods. You don't look back at the fire. You can't bear it. You look at the faces of the people you are passing. No one meets your eye. They stare at the ground, at the fire, anywhere but at you. To look at you now is to risk contamination. The judgment is complete. You have been tried, convicted, and sentenced in the space of an hour. You haven't lost your life, but you have lost your world. You are a ghost, still breathing but utterly alone. The hands on your arms are relentless, pushing you forward, stumbling down the path that leads away from everything you know. The heat of the fire on your back slowly fades, replaced by the encroaching cool of the evening. The sounds of the village, the crackle of flames, the murmur of the crowd, the distant, frantic barking of a dog recede behind you, muffled by the growing curtain of trees. Soon, the only sounds are your own ragged breaths, the scuff of your worn shoes on the dirt, and the heavy, rhythmic footsteps of the two men herding you like a stray animal. They don't speak to you. You are no longer a person to be spoken to. You are a thing to be disposed of. They march you past the last of the village fields, the neat rows of stubble and sleeping plants looking alien and hostile in the twilight. You cross the sluggish, half-dry creek, the boundary marker of your old world. On the other side, the path dissolves into a deer trail, and the woods close in around you, thick and dark. The trees are black silhouettes against a deep indigo sky. The air smells of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the clean, sharp scent of pine. It's a smell that has always brought you comfort, a sense of peace. Now it smells of banishment. The forest is no longer your sanctuary, it is your prison. After what feels like an eternity, one of the men gives you a final, hard shove. You stumble forward, catching yourself on the trunk of a birch tree, its bark smooth and cool against your palms. Go, the smith grunts, his voice devoid of emotion. And do not let the sun rise on you anywhere near this valley again. If we see you, we will not be so merciful. Merciful. The word hangs in the silent air, absurd. They turn without another word and disappear back the way they came, their footsteps quickly swallowed by the immense silence of the forest. You are alone, truly, utterly alone. The finality of it crashes down on you, a weight so immense it forces the air from your lungs. You slide down the trunk of the birch tree, your legs giving way until you are sitting on the cold, damp ground. You wrap your arms around your knees and stare into the deepening gloom. You have nothing. The clothes on your back, a simple linen shift and a woolen tunic, and the thin leather shoes on your feet. That is the sum of your worldly possessions. Everything else, your home, your meager furniture, the herbs you so carefully gathered, the small tokens of your past, is turning to ash behind you. As darkness settles completely, the forest comes alive with a new set of sounds. The frantic chirping of crickets, the mournful hoot of an owl, the rustle of some small creature in the undergrowth. Every sound is magnified, every shadow seems to move. The familiar woods have transformed into a place of menace. You think of the stories the villagers tell around the fire in winter, tales of wolves, of vengeful spirits of the forest, of men who get lost and are never seen again. Were those stories meant to keep children close to home, or were they a genuine reflection of the dangers that lurk just beyond the circle of firelight? The historical reality is that the wilderness of medieval Europe was a genuinely dangerous place. While the threat of wolf attacks on humans is often exaggerated in popular culture, it was unheard of, especially in harsh winters. Far more common was the danger of simply getting lost, of succumbing to exposure, or of encountering bandits or other outcasts who might be far more dangerous than any animal. Your situation is incredibly precarious. You pull your tunic tighter around you, the rough wool a poor defense against the chilling air. A strange cold fact comes to mind: in some parts of Europe, a person declared an outlaw, a wolf's head, as they were sometimes called, could be killed by anyone without legal penalty. It was as if you ceased to be human in the eyes of the law, while your banishment was informal, a village edict rather than a royal decree. The principle feels terrifyingly the same. You have been stripped of the protection of the community, and in this world, that is everything. You force yourself to stand up, your limbs stiffened cold. Sitting here will do nothing but invite despair and the night's chill. You need to move to find some kind of shelter, however temporary. You have no destination, no plan. Your only instinct is the most basic one to survive this night. You begin to walk, stumbling through the dark, your hands outstretched to feel for trees, your feet catching on roots and stones. You are moving away from the village, deeper into the unknown. Behind you, a faint orange glow still stains the sky above the treetops. It's the last remnant of your old life, a funeral pyre burning on the horizon. You don't look back. You can't. There is only forward now into the cold, silent, and unforgiving wilderness. You walk until your legs ache with a deep, burning fatigue. The moon, a pale sliver, offers little light, filtering down in shifting, ghostly patches through the thick canopy of leaves. Every rustle in the undergrowth sends a jolt of fear through you. Every snap of a twig sounds like a pursuer. Your mind, raw with shock and grief, plays tricks on you, twisting shadows into crouching beasts and the sigh of the wind into a menacing whisper. You are driven by a single, desperate thought: shelter. You need to find a place to get out of the wind, a place to hide from whatever dangers the night holds. You follow the terrain, your feet guiding you instinctively downwards, knowing that water, and perhaps some form of shelter, is more likely to be found in the low ground. The slope becomes steeper, and you half slide, half climb down a rocky embankment, loose stones skittering away into the darkness below. Your foot catches on something, a root or a vine, and you pitch forward, tumbling down the last few feet of the slope. You land hard on a bed of damp leaves and moss, the impact knocking the wind out of you. For a moment, you just lie there, a tangled heap of limbs and despair, the rough texture of the ground against your cheek. The fall, however, has brought you to an unexpected sanctuary. As your eyes adjust to the deeper darkness at the base of the rock face, you see it. A dark opening, a shadow deeper than the others. It's a fissure in the rock, not large, perhaps the height of a man at its entrance, but it's there, a cave. You crawl towards it, your hands sinking into the cool, damp earth. The air flowing out of the opening is still and cold, with a clean, mineral scent, like a freshly dug root cellar. It smells of safety, of stone, of a place untouched by the sun or by the judgments of men. Hesitantly, you pull yourself to your feet and duck inside. The entrance is narrow, but a few steps in, it opens up into a small chamber. You can't see its full extent, but you can feel the space around you, the way the sound of your own breathing is swallowed by the immense, silent stone. You run your hands along the walls. They are cool, rough, and solid, unyielding. This is a place that has been here for 1,000 years and will be here for 1,000 more. It feels ancient and indifferent, and in that indifference you find a strange comfort. Nothing that happens in the frantic, fleeting world of men can touch this place. You sink to the floor, your back against one of the stone walls. The ground is cold, but it's dry. You are out of the wind. You are hidden. For the first time since you were dragged from your home, a small, fragile sense of security settles over you. It's a grim sort of security, the security of a tomb, but it's better than the terrifying openness of the forest. Caves have always held a dual role in the human psyche. They are places of refuge and places of fear. For prehistoric humans, they were the first homes, shelters from predators and the elements. But they were also seen as entrances to the underworld, mysterious places where the veil between worlds was thin. Historians debate whether early medieval people actively used caves for shelter. While some evidence exists, many preferred to build temporary shelters from wood and brush. A cave like this might be seen with suspicion, a potential lair for bears, wolves, or in the superstitious mind, something far worse. For you, however, superstition is a luxury you can no longer afford. This cave is simply a resource. A strange niche piece of history is the existence of cave hermits or anchorites. Individuals who would voluntarily choose to live a life of prayer and isolation in a cave or a small, sealed cell. Their choice was seen as the ultimate act of piety and devotion. It's a bitter irony. They were revered for choosing the very fate that has been forced upon you as a punishment. Your forced exile is their holy retreat. You sit in the absolute, perfect blackness. It's a darkness so complete it feels physical, pressing against your eyes. You are safe from the wind and the imagined beasts of the forest, but you are not safe from your own thoughts. The events of the day replay in your mind, a relentless, searing loop, the pointing finger, Father Alaric's cold eyes, the roar of the flames consuming your home, the faces of your neighbors turning away. You are exhausted, but sleep feels a world away. You are a castaway, washed up on the shore of an unknown lone land. This cave is your wreckage, your last piece of solid ground in a sea of hostility. It's not a home, it's a hiding place. A place to endure the first night of a new, terrifying life. As you huddle against the cold stone, you make a silent vow. They cast you out to die. You will not give them the satisfaction. The darkness inside the cave is absolute, a thick, velvety black that presses in on you. It's a silence so profound it makes your ears ring. Out here alone, your senses, starved of light, become painfully sharp. You hear the frantic, tiny skittering of some small creature deep within the cave's recesses. You hear the impossibly loud thud of your own heart. You feel the unyielding cold of the stone floor seeping through your thin clothes, a deep, persistent chill that seems to settle in your bones. This is your first night as an outcast, and fear is a living thing beside you in the dark. It's not just the fear of wolves or bandits. It's a deeper, more primal fear of the unknown, of the immense and crushing loneliness. In the village, you were never truly alone. The sounds of your neighbors, the distant lowing of a cow, the peal of the church bell, these were the threads of the social fabric, a constant, comforting reminder that you were part of a whole. Here, there is nothing. The fabric has been torn and you are a loose thread unraveling in the dark. Your mind, exhausted and traumatized, begins to betray you. The gentle dripping of water somewhere in the cave becomes the sound of footsteps. The sigh of the wind at the cave's mouth sounds like a judgmental whisper. You see flashes of flame behind your closed eyelids, the ghost of your burning home. You see the face of the baker's sick child, his eyes wide and vacant. Did you do this? The question, venomous and insane, slithers into your thoughts. For a fleeting, terrifying moment, you wonder if they were right. Could you possess some power, some malevolent energy you were unaware of? You shake your head violently in the dark, as if to physically dislodge the thought. No, it's the poison of their accusations seeping into you. You cling to your own sanity, to the memory of your practical, earth-bound knowledge. You know the names of plants, not demons. You know how to soothe a fever, not summon a curse. To combat the rising panic, you begin to take stock, a mental inventory. What do you actually know that can help you right now? You know the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. You know that moss tends to grow on the north side of trees in this part of the world, a small, unreliable compass. You know that water flows downhill. These are simple, solid facts, anchors in a swirling sea of terror. You think about the history of night itself. For modern people, true darkness is a rarity. For you, it's half of your life. The medieval world was fundamentally divided into day and night. Day was for work, for community, for God. Night was a time of danger, of temptation, of spirits and demons. The church taught that the darkness was the devil's domain. It's a belief that is currently burrowing deep into your marrow. Historians often call this the nocturnal imagination, a shared cultural anxiety about what lurked in the shadows. Most people would huddle in their homes, the fire banked, the door barred, waiting for the safety of sunrise. You're outside that protection, living in the very heart of their fear. A strange, little-known fact about medieval sleep is that it wasn't always a solid 8-hour block. Many historical texts refer to something called a first sleep and a second sleep. People would go to bed at dusk, sleep for a few hours, then wake up for an hour or two in the middle of the night. This waking period, known as the watch, was a time for prayer, reflection, quiet chores, or even visiting neighbors. It was a normal part of the rhythm of life. Then they would go back to sleep until dawn. Your current state of terrified wakefulness is, ironically, not so different from the normal sleep pattern of the very people who cast you out. You force yourself to focus on the practical. The immediate, overwhelming need is for warmth. The cold is more than just uncomfortable, it's a threat. It saps your strength, dulls your mind. You curl into the tightest ball you can, pulling the rough wool of your tunic over your head, creating a small pocket of air warmed by your own breath. You begin to rub your arms and legs, trying to generate some friction, some heat. The minutes stretch into what feels like hours. The terror slowly recedes, replaced by a vast, aching exhaustion. Your mind is too tired to conjure any more demons. There is only the cold, the dark, and the rhythmic, steady beat of your own heart. It is the only familiar sound left in your universe. You focus on it, a drumbeat of survival. Thump thump. I am alive. Thump thump. I am alive. Thump thump. Slowly, imperceptibly, the profound blackness of the cave begins to soften. A faint, grey light begins to silhouette the entrance. It's the first hint of dawn, the promise that the night, which felt eternal, is finally ending. You have survived. You have made it through the first night. It's a small, grim victory, but it's a victory nonetheless. The fear is still there, the cold stone in your stomach, but alongside it, a tiny, stubborn seed of defiance begins to sprout. As the grey light of dawn bleeds into the cave, you uncuro your stiff, aching limbs. The world outside the cave mouth is painted in shades of charcoal and silver, the trees still holding the deep shadows of the night. You are cold, hungry, and utterly drained, but you are alive. The terror of the night has passed, leaving in its place the stark, practical reality of your situation. Survival is no longer an abstract concept, it is a series of immediate, urgent tasks. The first is water. Your throat is dry and scratchy, and a dull headache is beginning to throb behind your eyes. You remember the sound of dripping from the night, and following the echo in the small chamber, you find it a slow, steady trickle of water seeping through a crack in the rock wall, collecting in a small, shallow pool on the stone floor. You hesitate for a moment. Is it safe in the village? The well was the only trusted source. Wild water could make you sick, but you have no choice. You kneel down and scoop up a little in your cupped hands. It's icy cold and tastes of stone and earth, but it's the most wonderful thing you ever tasted. You drink slowly, carefully, feeling the life-giving liquid soothe your parched throat. With the immediate thirst quenched, the gnawing emptiness in your stomach makes itself known. Hunger is a dull, persistent ache. You have to find food. This is where your secret knowledge, the very thing that led to your exile, becomes your only hope for survival. You step out of the cave, into the cool, damp air of the morning, and begin to read the landscape. You are no longer just a woman in a forest, you are a forager. Your perspective shifts. You don't see trees, you see potential firewood, shelter, and sources of food. You don't see weeds, you see a larder. The forest floor, which last night was a terrifying, undifferentiated mass, is now a map of possibilities. Your eyes, trained by years of quiet observation, begin their work. You recognize the broad, arrow-shaped leaves of sorrel peeking out from behind a mossy log. You pluck a few leaves and chew on them. The sharp, lemony taste floods your mouth, a welcome shock to your senses. It's not much, but it's a start. A little further on, you spot the familiar, star-shaped flowers of chickweed, a humble but nourishing green. You gather a handful. Your grandmother's voice echoes in your memory. The forest provides for those who know how to ask. You are asking now with an urgency you've never known before. You find a patch of dandelions. Their sunny yellow heads a cheerful affront to your grim situation. The villagers consider them a nuisance, a weed to be pulled from gardens, but you know better. The leaves are bitter but edible. The roots can be roasted, and the flowers can be made into wine. You dig up a few thick roots with a sharp stone, your fingers sinking into the soft, dark earth. This is the core of what historians call ethnobating, the study of how people use indigenous plants. For a medieval peasant, this knowledge was a matter of life and death, especially for those living on the margins. While the fields provided the staples, the grains and beans, the commons and woodlands, provided a crucial supplement of vitamins and minerals. This wild food was often called the peasant's larder. The knowledge was incredibly localized. The plants used in a valley in what is now Germany could be completely different from those used in the hills of England. It was a science passed down orally, almost exclusively from mother to daughter. As you search, you come across a plant with broad, heart-shaped leaves and a thick stalk. Burdock. A small, almost forgotten memory surfaces. A traveling man once told you that in the far-off land of Cathay, people eat the root of this plant. A bizarre idea. Here, it's mostly used in poultices for skin ailments. Could it be food? The question of what is edible and what is poisonous is now the most important question in your life. You recall the 4 rules of edibility your mother taught you. Don't eat things that look like parsley or carrots, unless you are absolutely sure. Avoid plants with milky sap. Stay away from anything with a soapy or bitter taste that doesn't go away. And if you only see a single one of a plant, leave it be. It's a simple, crude system, but it has kept you safe so far. You decide to trust the traveler's tale and dig up the long, root of the burdock, adding it to your small but growing pile of treasures. Historians are still uncertain just how much of the peasant diet came from foraging versus agriculture. The records written by landowners and clerics focus on tithes and crop yields. They rarely mention the handful of nuts or the pot of boiled nettles that could mean the difference between a full belly and a hungry night. Your current predicament highlights this gap in the official story. The unwritten knowledge of the land is what will sustain you. You work for hours, your focus entirely on the task at hand. The fear and grief are still there, but they are pushed to the background by the immediate, primal needs of your body. Finding food, identifying plants, assessing their uses, it's a familiar rhythm, a comfort in the chaos. You are learning to speak the ancient language of the earth, not in whispers as a secret hobby, but as your new mother tongue. By midday, you have a small pile of roots and greens wrapped in a large burdock leaf motley collection, but it's food. It's life. You carry it back to your cave, your first successful hunt, your first act of defiance against the fate they chose for you. Back in the cool silence of your cave, you lay out your meager harvest on a flat, clean stone. The handful of greens, the sorrel leaves, the dandelion and burdock roots. It's food, yes, but the roots are tough and fibrous, the leaves gritty with soil. The thought of eating them raw is unappealing, and you know that some roots, like the burdock, are more digestible and nutritious when cooked. This presents your next great challenge: fire. In the village, fire was a constant, a treasured commodity. The hearth was the heart of the home, its embers carefully banked at night and coaxed back to life in the morning. If your fire went out, you could always borrow a glowing coal from a neighbor. Here, there are no neighbors. Here, fire is not a thing to be kept, but a thing to be made from scratch. You've seen men do it, but you've never tried yourself. You know the principle. Friction. You need to spin a hard piece of wood against a softer piece, fast enough and low enough to create a glowing ember in the resulting wood dust. It sounds simple. It is anything but. First, you need the right materials. You spend the next hour searching the woods around your cave. You need a fireboard, a piece of soft, dry, non-resinous wood. You find a fallen branch of what you think is linden or basswood. It's wood pale and light. Perfect. You use a sharp-edged piece of flint you found by the creek bed to carve a small depression into the flattest part of the board. Next, you need a spindle, a straight, hard stick of a different wood, about the length of your forearm. Seasoned branch of oak and spend a long time scraping its smooth, carving one end to a blunt point that will fit into the depression on your fireboard. This is the bow drill method, one of the most ancient and effective ways of making fire. The knowledge is as old as the hills. Yet for the average medieval villager, it would be a forgotten, almost magical art. While earn it when you could just get a light from next door, your forced isolation is pushing you to rediscover skills your distant ancestors would have known as intimately as breathing. You find a flexible, green branch for a bow and use a strip of leather cut from the top of one of your shoes for the cord. The sacrifice stings, but fire is more important than perfectly intact footwear. You find a smooth, comfortable stone to use as a handhold, to press down on the top of the spindle. You have all the components. Now for the hard part. You gather a small pile of the driest tinder. You can find the fluffy seeds from a dried thistle, a handful of shredded birch bark, some bone-dry grass. You place a large leaf under the notch in your fireboard to catch the precious black dust that will hopefully from an ember. You kneel, loop the bowstring around the spindle, place the point into the depression, and put the handhold stone on top. Then you begin to saw the bow back and forth. At first it's awkward. The spindle slips, the bowstring gets tangled. Your arms, unused to the motion, begin to ache almost immediately. Smoke, thin and acrid, begins to rise from the wood, but it's just smoke. There's no glow, no heat. You push harder, so faster. Sweat drips from your brow. Your muscles scream in protest. You stop panting and examine your work. A small amount of blackened dust has collected on the leaf. Nothing more. Frustration and despair begin to creep in. It feels impossible. Your ancestors might have done this daily, but they were not you, a woman whose hands were more used to grinding herbs than forcing fire from wood. The debate among experimental archaeologists about the true difficulty of primitive fire making is quite lively. Some can coax an ember to life in under a minute. For others, a first attempt can take hours of grueling, frustrating work, often ending in failure. It's a skill that requires not just the right materials, but the right technique, a feel for the pressure and speed that can only be learned through practice. You close your eyes, take a deep breath, and try to remember every detail you've ever observed. You need more pressure. You need a smoother, more consistent rhythm. You reset your tools and begin again. This time, you ignore the burning in your shoulders and the cramping in your hands. You focus only on the rhythmic sawing, the feel of the wood grinding, the smell of the heating timber. Back and forth, back and forth. The smoke gets thicker, smelling less acrid and more like hot, toasted wood. The black dust piles up, and then you see it. A tiny, faint wisp of smoke curling up from the dust pile after you've stopped sawing. It's not just smoke from friction. It's the smoke of combustion. Your heart leaps. With trembling, reverent care, you tap the fireboard, coaxing the small pile of glowing dust into your tinder bundle. You hold it in your cupped hands close to your face and begin to blow. Gently at first, then more steadily. The smoke thickens, and you can feel the heat growing against your palms. You blow again, and with a sudden magical whoosh the tinder bundle bursts into a beautiful, bright, dancing flame. You almost drop it in shock and joy. You've done it. You alone have made fire. You carefully place the flame in a small, pre-prepared circle of stones and feed it tiny twigs, then larger sticks until you have a small, stable, crackling fire. The warmth seeps into your skin, chasing away the deep chill. The light pushes back the oppressive gloom of the cave, making it feel less like a tomb and more like a hearth. You stare into the flames, mesmerized. This fire is more than just a tool for cooking. It is light, it is warmth, it is protection from predators. It is a symbol of hope. It is your victory over the cold and the dark. You have not just tamed the flame, you have asserted your will to nurse one grueling, triumphant spark at a time. With the fire crackling merrily in its stone-ringed hearth, the cave is transformed. The dancing light throws warm, flickering shadows on the stone walls, making the space feel smaller, more intimate. It's no longer just a hole in the rock, it's a room. Your room. You place your 4 aged roots on the hot stones at the edge of the fire, the simple act of cooking a profound comfort. The simple act of cooking a profound comfort. The smell of roasting burdock and dandelion fills the air, a humble but deeply satisfying aroma. As you wait for your meager meal to cook, you sit cross-legged, staring into the flames. The immediate, urgent needs of survival, shelter, water, fire, food have been met, at least for now. And with this brief respite, the silence returns, bringing with it the one companion you cannot escape: memory. The firelight doesn't just illuminate the cave, it illuminates the dark corners of your mind. You see your husband's face, not as he was on your wedding day, his smile wide and nervous. You remember the rough, calloused feel of his hand in yours. He was a good man, a quiet man, and his death 2 years ago was the first great tearing of the fabric of your life. His absence now feels like a fresh wound, None of this would have happened. A man's presence, however humble, was a shield. As a widow, you were vulnerable, an anomaly. You see your mother's face, her brow furrowed in concentration as she taught you to identify the leaves of comfrey. Be gentle, she'd say. Take only what you need, and always leave some for the plant to recover. Her wisdom was not just about botany, it was a philosophy of respect, of living in balance with the world. What would she think of your current plight? Would she see it as a failure, or as the ultimate test of the knowledge she passed on to you? And then inevitably you see the faces from the village. The hate in the baker's eyes, the fear in Elspeth's as she scurried away from your door, the cold, righteous certainty on the face of Father Alaric. You feel the sting of their betrayal, a hot, bitter anger that rises in your throat. They were your neighbors. You had shared bread with them, celebrated harvests with them, mourned losses with them. How could they turn on you so completely, so quickly? This deep sense of isolation is a recurring theme in the accounts of those who lived on the fringes of society. The psychological toll of being an outcast is a subject historians are still exploring. How did people cope with such profound loneliness in an era that was so intensely communal? Some historical accounts, often from religious hermits, speak of finding solace in God. Others, it's presumed, simply succumb to despair. For you, there is no one to talk to, no one to share the burden with. The memories are your only companions, and they are both a comfort and a torment. You chew on a piece of roasted birdecrute. It's earthy, slightly sweet, and still a bit tough, but it's warm and filling. As you eat, you notice the soot from the fire is collecting on the cave ceiling above the hearth. It's a problem. A smoking cave is an obvious sign of habitation. You'll need to be more careful, perhaps build the fire closer to the entrance where the smoke can dissipate more easily. Your mind is already working, adapting, solving the next problem. It's a defense mechanism, a way to keep the overwhelming grief at bay. A lesser-known aspect of medieval life was the importance of memory as a tool. With literacy being rare, people had highly developed memorization skills. Genealogies, property lines, complex recipes, and non-epic poems were all stored in the mind, not on paper. Your own knowledge of plants is a testament to this oral tradition. But this powerful memory is a double-edged sword. You can't simply close the book on your past. The images and voices are locked inside your head, replaying with vivid clarity. You finish your small meal and add a few more sticks to the fire. The warmth makes you drowsy, your body finally succumbing to the exhaustion of the past 2 days. You find a relatively smooth patch of floor away from the fire but still within its circle of warmth and light. You curl up, using your arms as a pillow. Sleep does not come easily. It's a fitful, shallow stay punctuated by dreams. You dream you are back in your cottage, the air thick with the smell of burning thatch. You dream of the baker's son, not seizing, but pointing at you with a small, trembling finger. You dream you are running through an endless forest, the sound of hounds baying behind you. You wake with a start, your heart pounding, the dream fear clinging to you like a shroud. The fire has burned down 2 glowing embers, casting a soft, red light on the cave walls. The silence is absolute. You are still alone. The memories are not just ghosts of the past, they are shaping your present, fueling your resolve. They are a painful, constant reminder of everything you are now fighting to hold on to your life and your sanity. Several weeks have passed. Our routine, grim and solitary, has become the rhythm of your new life. You wake with the first light, drink from the seep in the cave wall, and then begin your daily search for food. You've become leaner, tougher. Your hands, once soft from mending and kneading, are now calloused and stained with earth. Your senses are sharper than they have ever been. You can tell by the rustle of leaves whether it's a mouse or a bird. You can smell rain on the wind hours before it arrives. The forest is no longer a place of menace, it is your larder, your workshop, your home. You've learned to supplement your diet of roots and greens. You've fashioned a crude snare from vines and have managed to catch a couple of unwary rabbits. You've found a patch of wild hazelnuts, a precious source of fat and protein. You cook your food over the fire, which you've now learned to bank carefully, keeping the embers alive under a bed of ash to save yourself the grueling work of starting it anew each day. But the loneliness is a constant, heavy cloak. You talk to yourself sometimes just to hear the sound of a human voice. You recite the names of plants, the stories your mother told you, anything to fill the vast, echoing silence. The isolation is beginning to wear on you, fraying the edges of your mind. One afternoon, while checking your snares near a thicket of hawthorn, you hear a sound that is not part of the forest's usual symphony. It's a pained, whimpering cry, followed by a thrashing in the undergrowth. Your Feywild boy, you freeze, your hand reaching for the heavy, sharpened stick you now carry everywhere. You creep forward, moving with a stealth you didn't know you possessed. Peeking through the dense leaves, you see the source of the sound. It's a fox. Its hind leg is caught fast in a crude, rusty trap, the kind a poacher might set and forget. The metal teeth have bit deep into its flesh. The fox is exhausted from its struggle, its beautiful red coat and blood. It lies panting, its dark eyes filled with terror and pain. Your heart clenches with a pang of empathy, so sharp it takes your breath away. This creature's fear and desperation mirror your own. It is trapped, wounded, and alone. The villagers would have seen it as a pest, a thief of chickens, and killed it without a second thought. Your first practical thought is that it could be food, but as you look at it, you don't see a meal. You see a fellow sufferer, making a decision that goes against every hard-won survival instinct. You decide to help it. Slowly, cautiously, you begin to speak to it in a low, soothing murmur. Easy now and not going to hurt you easy. The fox flattens its knees and bares its teeth, a low growl rumbling in its chest. It's terrified, ready to fight to its last breath. You know that getting close is a risk. A bite from a wild animal could lead to a festering wound, a death sentence in this world without medicine. But you can't bring yourself to walk away. This bond between humans and animals, especially outcasts, is a recurring motif in folklore, but its historical basis is complex. While most medieval interactions with wildlife were pragmatic as food, pests, or resources, there are records of hermits and saints, like St. Francis of Assisi, who were said to have a special kinship with animals. Historians debate whether these stories reflect a genuine compassionate worldview or are simply allegorical tales about taming the wildness of nature through faith. In your case, it's far simpler, a moment of profound, shared vulnerability. You spend the better part of an hour just sitting, a safe distance away, talking to the fox. You don't move closer, you just let it get used to your presence, your voice. Slowly, gradually, the growling subsides. The fox watches you, its intelligent eyes never leaving your face. When it seems calmer, you begin your approach, moving with painstaking slowness. You have a small piece of cooked rabbit meat from the morning wrapped in a leaf. You toss it gently towards the fox. It sniffs at it, hesitant, then greedily gulps it down. You are building a fragile, tentative trust. Finally, you are close enough to see the trap mechanism. It's old and rusted. With your heavy stick, you carefully, painstakingly, begin to pry at the jaws of the trap. The fox whimpers and struggles weakly, but it doesn't try to bite you. It seems to understand, on some level, what you are trying to do. With a final jarring screech of metal on metal, the trap springs open. The fox, freed, scrambles away a few feet and then collapses, licking at its wounded leg. It's a bad wound, but you know what to do. You go back to your cave and return with what you need to clean, damp moss to gently clean the wound, and a poultice of crushed chora leaves to stop the bleeding and prevent infection. The very skills that got you cast out are now what you offer to this wild creature. The fox allows you to tend to its leg, a truly remarkable act of trust. When you are done, you leave it with a bit more meat and the rest of your water in a hollowed-out piece of bark. You retreat to your cave, not knowing if you will ever see it again. The act of caring for another living being, of focusing your energy on its needs instead of your own, has broken the suffocating spell of your loneliness. It has reminded you of a part of yourself you thought you had lost, the healer. That night, as you sit by your fire, the silence in the cave feels different. It's no longer empty. It's filled with a quiet hope that you are not, after all, completely alone in this world. The fox does not disappear. The next morning, when you emerge from your cave, it's there, lying a short distance away, watching the entrance. Its injured leg is tucked underneath it, and it doesn't try to stand. When it sees you, it gives a soft, almost imperceptible flick of its tail. A strange, unspoken partnership begins. You continue to bring it food scraps of your own meager meals and fresh water. You change the yarrow poultice on its wound. In return, it offers you its companionship. Its presence is a quiet, steady anchor in your sea of solitude. Sometimes, it will even alert you to the approach of a deer or the sound of birds in a fruiting tree with a low, soft woo-ff, its wild senses far keener than your own. This new routine emboldens you. The crushing weight of despair has lifted slightly, replaced by a cautious curiosity about the world you've been driven from. What has happened since you left? Is the baker's son alive? Has the drought broken? The questions gnaw at you. A hunger for knowledge as strong as the hunger for food. You decide to risk it. You will go back, not to the village itself, but to its edges, to a place where you can see. You wait for a day when the sky is heavy with a low, grey overcast. A day of poor light and drizzling rain, perfect for concealment. You leave the fox with a small pile of nuts and whisper a promise to return, a promise that feels surprisingly important. The journey back is a strange one. You are no longer the frightened, stumbling exile. You move through the woods with a quiet confidence, your senses alert, your path sure. You are a creature of the forest now, and you are returning to the borders of a world that no longer claims you. You choose your vantage point carefully, a high, wooded ridge that overlooks the valley, the same ridge you were driven over weeks ago. Lying flat on your stomach in the damp undergrowth, hidden by ferns and the thick trunk of an ancient oak, you can see the village spread out below you. It looks small, almost like a child's toy. The neat patchwork of fields, the cluster of cottages with their thin plumes of smoke, the stone church at its center. From this distance, it looks peaceful, orderly, unchanged. But as you watch, you begin to notice the subtle differences. The fields look wrong. The peas and beans that should be lush and green are withered and brown. The drought has not broken. The creek bed is still a muddy scar. You see a group of men digging a new well, their movements slow and tired. The old one must have finally failed. The village's lifeblood is drying up. You watch the villagers as they move about their chores. They seem slower, more stooped. There's a lack of energy, a sense of collective exhaustion. There are fewer children playing in the paths. The scene is one of quiet, grinding hardship. There is no sign of the divine favor Father Alaric promised would return once you, the source of the curse, were heard. This is a common historical pattern. The scapegoating of an individual might provide a temporary psychological release for a community in crisis, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem: a drought, a famine, a disease. When conditions fail to improve, a new anxiety can set in. What if they chose the wrong person? What if the curse is stronger than they thought? Or most frighteningly, what if the problem isn't supernatural at all, but a simple, unsolvable lack of rain? Historians are still debating how communities process this post-purge disillusionment. Did it lead to more accusations or a grim, silent acceptance of their fate? You scan the village for any sign of your own life. You see the dark, empty space at the edge of the village where your cottage once stood. There's nothing there but a patch of blackened earth, already being overgrown with weeds. It's as if you were never there at all. The sight sends a pang of cold, hollow grief through you, but it's a distant take now, not the sharp, tearing pain of before. A strange bit of folklore comes to mind. Some believed that the ghost of a wronged person would be unable to cross running water to return and haunt their accusers. By driving you over the creek, they were performing a ritualistic severing, ensuring your spirit, as well as your physical self, could not return. Lying here, on the wrong side of the creek, you feel like a ghost, observing a world you can no longer touch. You watch for hours as the rain falls in a steady, miserable drizzle. You see Father Alaric emerge from the church, his shoulders hunched against the damp. You see the baker's wife, Agnes, throw a bucket of dirty water into the street, her face pale and drawn. There is no sign of her son. You don't know if this is a good or a bad sign. As dusk begins to fall, you know it's time to leave. You have seen enough. Your curiosity is sated, replaced with a complex mix of emotions. There's a grim satisfaction in seeing that your banishment did not solve their problems. There's a lingering sadness for the hardship they are all facing, a phantom limb of your old community connection. But overriding it all is a profound sense of detachment. This is their world, their struggle. It is no longer yours. You slip back into the woods, the ghost returning to her wilderness. Your world is the cave, the fire, the quiet companionship of a wounded fox. It's a small, hard world, but it is real, and it is yours. You are no longer looking back. The rhythm of your days settles into a new pattern, one dictated by the changing seasons and the quiet companionship of the fox, whom you started calling Flicker, for the way his tail twitches when HES pleased. His leg is healing slowly, and HES started to limp around the small clearing in front of the cave. His presence a small, warm spot in your vast solitude. One afternoon, while foraging further from the cave than usual, following a promising trail of late-season blackberries, you hear a sound that is utterly alien to your world, the frantic, terrified neiging of a horse, followed by the sharp crack of splintering wood and a man's cry of pain. Your survival instinct screams at you to run, to hide. A man's voice means trouble. It means the world you fled from is encroaching on your sanctuary. But your healer's instinct, the part of you that ran to the aid of a trapped fox, urges you forward. Curiosity and a deeply buried empathy win out. You creep through the dense undergrowth, moving as silently as a shadow until you can peer out onto a barely there track that winds through the forest. The scene is one of chaos. A small, sturdy cart, laden with bundles and barrels, has lost a wheel and tipped precariously into a ditch. One of the horses is tangled in its harness, its eyes wide with panic, and slumped against a tree is a man, his face pale, his leg bent at an unnatural angle. HES dressed not like a villager, but in the durable, travel-stained clothes of a merchant or a tinker. He is clutching his leg, his teeth gritted in pain. He is a stranger, not from your village. This realization changes everything. He doesn't know you. He doesn't see you as a witch and outcast. To him, you would just be a woman. You watch from the safety of the trees for a long time, your heart pounding. He tries to stand but collapses back with a groan. He is helpless. If you leave him, he could die out here from his injury, from exposure, or from the wolves that you know patrol this part of the woods at night. Slowly, deliberately, you step out from behind the trees. The man's head snaps up, his hand immediately going to a small knife at his belt. His eyes are wide with fear and suspicion. A lone woman, appearing as if from nowhere in the middle of a forest, you know how it must look. I mean you no harm, you say, your voice rough from disuse. You hold up your empty hands to show you are unarmed. Your leg, it is broken. He just stares, his grip tight on the knife. Who are you, he rasps, his voice strained. Are you one of the forest folk? Forest folk. The term is one you've heard whispered in tales referring to mythical, half-wild people who shun the civilized world. The irony is not lost on you. Perhaps that's what you've become. I live nearby, you say simply, offering no more. You take a tentative step closer. I can help you. The bone needs to be set. This is a risk. Your knowledge is, once again, the thing that could either save or condemn you. His eyes flicker from your face to his leg, then back again. Pain and desperation are at war with his fear. Pain is winning. He gives a short, sharp nod. You get to work. You use his own knife to cut away the fabric of his trousers. The break is bad, the clean snap of the tibia. You know it needs to be straightened, and quickly, before the swelling gets worse. This will hurt, you say, your voice calm and authoritative. You find a sturdy branch and have him bite down on it. Then, with a deep breath and a prayer to whatever old gods listen to your mother, you pull, hard and steady. He screams, a muffled, guttural sound into the wood, and then, mercifully, faints. While he is unconscious, you work quickly. You fashion a splint from straight branches and strips of cloth torn from one of the bundles in his cart. You bind his leg tightly, immobilizing the break. You manage to calm the panicked horse and free it from the tangle of harnesses. By the time he comes to, the sun is low in the sky. His leg is splintered, the horse is calmly grazing nearby, and a small fire which you started with the flint and steel from his own pouch, a luxury you haven't had in months, is cracking beside him. You hand him a cup of water you fetched from a nearby spring. He looks at you, his eyes filled with a dazed mixture of pain and awe. You know what you are doing, he says. I learned it, you reply. For the first time in what feels like a lifetime, you are having a conversation. He tells you his name is Emmerich, a peddler who travels between the larger towns, selling everything from salt and iron pots to ribbons and news. He was trying a new, shorter route through the forest when he hit a hidden pothole. As he talks, he opens up a whole new world to you. He speaks of towns with more than 100 houses, or stone castles with towering walls, of markets so large you could get lost in them. He talks of different customs, different rulers, different beliefs. Your village, which had been your entire universe, suddenly shrinks in your mind to a tiny, insignificant speck in a vast, complex world. This encounter with the traveler is a crucial turning point. For many isolated medieval communities, itinerant merchants, tinkers, and pilgrims were their only connection to the wider world. They were a living newspaper, carrying news of wars, plagues, and royal decrees. The accuracy of this news is a point of great debate among historians. It was often exaggerated, misremembered, or twisted to make a better story, but it was vital nonetheless. Emmerich looks at you with a new respect. You are not some mythical creature, you are a woman with a rare and valuable skill. He has no idea of your past, your crime. He sees only your competence. You saved my life, he says, his voice thick with gratitude. How can I repay you? You look at the setting sun, at the encroaching shadows. You have a choice. You could demand payment, a share of his goods, but what you crave more than anything is a connection, a piece of the world he represents. Tell me more, you say, settling by the fire. Tell me more about the world outside this valley. You spend 2 days in the company of Emmerich the peddler. While he rests and his leg begins the slow process of mending, you talk. Or rather, he talks and you listen, soaking up his words like the dry earth soaks up a summer rain. He is a born storyteller, and his tales paint a picture of a world far larger and more chaotic than you had ever imagined. He tells you of the politics of the great lords, their petty wars and strategic marriages that shift the fates of thousands. He speaks of the growing power of merchant guilds in the towns, a new kind of power based not on land or title but on wealth. This is a revelation. In your world, power was tied to the soil and the church. The idea of a common man accumulating enough money to rival a nobleman is both frightening and fascinating. In return for your care, Emmerich insists on paying you. You refuse coin, it has no value in your world, but you accept a few practical gifts from his cart: a small, sharp iron knife, a tinderbox with flint and steel, a thick woolen blanket, and most precious of all, a small sack of salt. A luxury you haven't tasted in months. It's more than a seasoning, it's a preservative, a way to cure meat for the coming winter. These simple items represent a monumental leap in your quality of life, a bridge between primitive survival and a more stable existence. On the 3rd day, he is strong enough to be moved. You help him onto his horse, securing his dead leg. He can't manage the cart alone, so he decides to leave it hidden in the ditch, vowing to return for it with help from the next town. Before he leaves, he turns to you, his expression serious. The town I'm heading to is 3 days' ride east. It's called Oakhaven. They have a physician there of a sort. You could find work. A woman with your skill, he trails off, seeing the look on your face. You shake your head. The idea of returning to a town, to a community, sends a chill of fear down your spine. Here in the forest, you are in control. Out there, you are an outcast, a woman alone, a target. My place is here, you say, the words feeling true as you speak them. He nods, understanding more than you've said. Be careful then, woman of the forest. He hesitates, then adds, one more piece of news, though it's a grim one. The valley you live near, the one with the village called, I believe it's High Cross. Your heart stops. High Cross. That was the name of your village. You nod, unable to speak. The sickness there is bad, he says, his voice low. I heard it from a woodsman on the road. It's not just the animals anymore. It's the people. They fever that burns hot and fast. They sent for a physician from Oakhaven, a learned man who reads the Greeks. But he took one look, bled a few of them without success, and left in a hurry. Said it was a pestilence born of bad air and God's wrath. He wouldn't even stay the night. You stare at him, the news hitting you like a physical blow. The sickness you were blamed for, the curse you were cast out to appease, has not only continued, it has worsened. It is consuming the very people who condemned you. The description of the physician's actions is tragically typical. Medieval medicine, particularly in rural areas, was a mishmash of classical theory, religious belief, and folk remedies. The dominant theory, inherited from ancient Greece, was that of the four humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Sickness was believed to be caused by an imbalance of these humours. The physician's response, bleeding a patient to remove an excess of bad blood, was standard practice. But for a village suffering from what was likely a waterborne bacterial infection, a theory some modern historians favour, for such localized plagues it would have been useless, even harmful. Emmerich sees the look on your face. It is a cursed place, it seems, he says, making a small sign to ward off evil. Best to stay far away from it. He gives you a final, grateful nod, then urges his horse forward, disappearing down the track, taking the wide world with him. You stand alone in the silence, his words echoing in your ears. A fever that burns hot and fast. You know that fever, you've seen it before. Not here, but in your mother's stories, in the whispers of travelers. You know the plants that can fight it, the barks that can cool the blood, the leaves that can soothe the gut. It's a knowledge the Oacavan physician, with all his Greek texts, does not possess. The irony is so bitter it tastes like poison. The cure for their ills is living in a cave in the forest, cast out as the cause of their suffering. You think of the faces of the villagers, Elspeth, Walter the baker, even the children who stared at you with suspicion. Are they burning with this fever now? You walk back to your cave, your mind in a turmoil. A part of you, the angry, wounded part, feels a grim, cold satisfaction. It is their just deserts. They cast out the healer and are now dying from the disease. But another part of you, the part that nursed a wounded fox and splint at a stranger's leg, feels a terrible, unwanted pang of compassion. These were your people. Their lives, their world were once yours. You sit at the mouth of your cave, with Fricka curled near your feet, and watch the sun set. The sky is streaked with fiery red and orange, the colors of a funeral pyre. For the first time, you are not just thinking about your own survival, you are thinking about theirs, and you are faced with an impossible choice. The days that follow Emir's departure are filled with a tense, restless energy. His news has shattered your hard-won peace. Every gust of wind from the direction of the valley seems to carry the faint, ghostly sound of a funeral bell. You try to focus on your winter preparations, smoking the last of the rabbit meat, gathering firewood, storing nuts, but your mind is elsewhere. It's in the small, stuffy cottages of High Cross, picturing the fever, the fear, the desperation. You tell yourself it's not your concern. You repeat the words like a mantra: they cast me out. They burned my home. It is not my concern. But the words feel hollow, a flimsy shield against the rising tide of your conscience. One afternoon, as you're re-scraping a hide near the cave entrance, Fricka suddenly lifts his head, his ears pricked, and lets out a low, soft growl. H.E.S. not looking into the deep woods, but towards the path that leads back to the valley. You grab your sharpened stick and duck behind a cluster of rocks, your heart pounding. Is it the villagers? Have they come to finish the job? You peer through a gap in the rocks and see a small figure stumbling up the path. It's not a man. It's a child. A young boy, perhaps 10 years old, his clothes ragged, his face smudged with dirt and tears. He stops a short distance from the clearing, looking around with wide, terrified eyes. And you recognize him. It's Leo, the blacksmith's son. A boy who had been among the loudest in the group of children who used to taunt you, calling you hag of the woods long before the official accusation. You once saw him throw a stone that landed just short of your feet as you walked past. He stands there, trembling, and calls out, his voice thin and reedy. "Hello, is this anyone?" "They're the Lady of the Forest." "Lady of the Forest." The name sends a jolt through you. That's not who you are. You are the witch, the outcast. What has changed? The boy takes a few hesitant steps closer, his eyes scanning the clearing. "Please," he begs, his voice cracking. "My sister, she has the fever. My mother says you're the only one who can help." You remain hidden, your mind reeling. His mother. The smith's wife. A woman who had looked at you with such scorn and hatred. She sent him, it makes no sense. The boy seems to sense your presence. He looks directly towards the rocks where you are hiding. "I know you're there," he says, tears welling in his eyes. "My father said not to come. He said you'd curse me. But my mother, she gave me this." He reaches into a small pouch at his belt and pulls out an object. It glints in the afternoon sun. A small, silver button. It's a trivial thing, but in the village it represents real wealth. A cherished possession. She said to give you this, to pay you. "Please. My sister is so hot, and she doesn't wake up." The boy's tough facade crumbles completely, and he begins to sob, his small shoulders shaking. You are frozen, a war raging within you. This is the child of one of your chief tormentors. His father was one of the men who dragged you from your home. They are asking for help from the very person they condemned. Their hypocrisy is staggering. The anger you've tried so hard to bury rushes back, hot and potent. Let them suffer. Let them feel the helplessness you felt. But then you look at the boy. Hes not a tormentor now. Hes just a terrified child. Desperate to save his sister, he braved his father's wrath and the dangers of the forest because of his mother's desperate, last-ditch hope. A hope that rested on you. The question of why people would turn to the very witches they had condemned is a fascinating, uncomplex part of this history. Some scholars argue it reveals the deep-seated, persistent belief in the power of these individuals, a power that could be malevolent or benevolent. The village priest and the traveling physician had failed them. Their official systems of belief and medicine had proven useless. In their absolute desperation, they turned back to the older, deeper magic. The folk knowledge they had publicly rejected but privately still feared and perhaps respected. They were hedging their bets with the supernatural. You look at the silver button in the boy's outstretched hand. It is an offering. A plea. It's not just payment, it's an admission of defeat. An acknowledgement that their world has failed, and your forbidden knowledge is their only hope. Slowly you stand up from behind the rocks. The boy flinches, his eyes going wide with a mixture of terror and awe. You are not what he expected. You are not a gnarled, cackling hag. You are a woman, thin and weathered, with dirt on your hands and leaves in your hair, your eyes holding a deep, unsettling calm. Flicker, the fox limps out from behind you and sits at your side, a silent, surreal guardian. The sight of you, flanked by a half-tame fox, solidifies your new identity in his young mind. You are not the village outcast. You are something else entirely, something wild and powerful and of the forest. You look at the boy, at his tear-streaked face, at the desperate hope in his eyes. And in that moment, the anger begins to recede, replaced by a heavy, weary sense of responsibility. This is not about them. It's about the child. It's about a little girl, burning with a fever you know how to fight. You stand in silence for a long moment, the boy's ragged sobs echoing in the quiet clearing. Your mind is a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The anger is a hot coal in your gut, whispering of vengeance and deserved suffering. The compassion is a gentle hand on your shoulder, urging you to see past the sins of the parents to the desperation of the child. You look at Leo, the blacksmith's son. He has stopped crying and is now staring at you, his chest still hitching with residual sobs. He looks small and terribly fragile against the backdrop of the ancient, indifferent forest. He is the first person from your old life to seek you out, not with a torch and accusations, but with a plea. This moment feels heavy with significance, a turning point you did not seek but cannot avoid. To help them would be to forgive the unforgivable. It would mean setting aside the memory of the fire, the jeers, the hatred in their eyes. It would mean offering the most precious thing you have, your knowledge, to those who tried to destroy you for possessing it. It feels like a surrender, a betrayal of your own pain. But to refuse to send this child back to his dying sister with a cold no, what would that make you? You would be confirming their darkest accusations. You would become the monster they imagined you to be, a creature fueled by bitterness and revenge. You would be allowing a child to die, not out of necessity or ignorance, but out of spite. The thought leaves a sour taste in your mouth. You have survived. You have carved a life out of this wilderness, a hardened, lonely life, but one that is yours. You do not need their validation or their forgiveness. But the question that hangs in the air is no longer about them. It's about you. Who are you now? Are you the sum of the injustices done to you, or are you something more? This internal conflict is a timeless human drama. Historians and philosophers have long debated the nature of forgiveness and justice. Is true strength found in retribution or in mercy? In a medieval context, justice was often swift and brutal, an eye for an eye. But the teachings of the Church, the very institution that condemned you, also spoke of grace, of turning the other cheek. You are caught between the visceral, human desire for payback and a higher, more difficult ethical calling. It is a choice that will define the rest of your life. A strange, almost forgotten historical practice comes to mind: the concept of the sin eater. In some rural parts of Britain, when a person died, a designated outcast or poor person would be called to the house. A piece of bread and a bowl of ale would be passed over the body of the deceased and then given to the sin eater. By consuming the food and drink, they were believed to be ritually absorbing the sins of the departed, allowing the soul to pass into heaven unburdened. The sin eater was paid a small fee but was otherwise shunned and feared, a necessary but revered part of the community's spiritual hygiene. In a way, the villagers are asking you to do the same, to absorb the consequences of their sin of casting you out, to cleanse their community not of their guilt, but of the plague that followed. They are asking you to be their healer, a role they themselves forced you to abandon. You look from the boy's frightened face to Flicker, who sits calmly at your side. The fox is a living testament to your choice to choose compassion over fear, healing over abandonment. Your bond with this wild creature was forged not from strength, but from a moment of shared vulnerability. Finally, you make your decision. It's not born of forgiveness. The anger and the hurt are still there, deep and real. It's not born of pity either. It is a decision born of a quiet, fierce pride. Your knowledge is your own. It does not belong to them or their small-minded fears. It is a part of you, like your own heartbeat, and you will choose how and when to use it. You will not let their past actions dictate your present choices. You take a step forward and the boy flinches back. I will not go to the village, you say, your voice steady and clear. It is the first boundary you set. The first rule in this new, strange negotiation. The sickness is in the water from the well. Tell them to drink only from the spring that feeds the upper creek, and they must boil it first. The boy stares at you uncommerfantide. Boil water, the idea is foreign. And I will prepare a medicine, you continue, your voice gaining strength. For your sister, but you must bring her here, to the edge of the woods, at the great oak tree that marks the start of the path. Bring her at sunrise tomorrow, and come alone. You are not surrendering. You are taking control. The power dynamic has shifted entirely. They came to your world, and now they must abide by your rules. You look at the silver button still clutched in the boy's hand. Keep your silver, you say, your voice softening just a fraction. Bring me an iron pot, a small one, and a clean blanket. Practical things. Things you need. This is not a gift. It is a trade. A transaction between two worlds. The boy nods, his eyes wide with a dawning, fearful respect. He turns and scrambles back down the path, a messenger returning from a foreign queen, carrying an impossible ultimatum and a fragile shard of hope. As soon as the boy disappears into the woods, a surge of adrenaline courses through you. The decision is made, and the weight of it settles upon you. You have promised a cure. Now you must deliver. You turn back to your cave, your mind already a whirlwind of tasks. This is no longer about foraging for your own survival, it's about a targeted, medicinal harvest. You know the fever the villagers are suffering from. Your mother called it grave dust fever for the way it grayed the skin of its victims. She taught you the triad of herbs to fight it: willow bark to break the heat, medawswort to calm the aching, and yarrow to make the patients wet the poison out. You grab the small basket you wove from river reeds and head out, Flicker limping along faithfully behind you. You move with a purpose you haven't felt in a long time. The forest, your familiar larder, now becomes your apothecary. You go to the stand of willow trees down by the creek, their long, graceful branches drooping towards the water. With your precious iron knife, you carefully strip away sections of the outer bark to get to the moist, fibrous inner layer. It is here the power lies. The knowledge that this bark contains the same essence as the expensive saw I see in powders sold in faraway cities is a secret held only by you and a few others like you. Next, you search the damp, marshy areas for meadowswort, its creamy white flowers long gone, but its leaves and stems still potent. You gather a large bundle, its sweet, almond-like scent filling the air. Finally, you climb to the drier, sunnier slopes to find yarrow, its feathery leaves and tough, woody stalks still standing, even as the season turns towards winter. As you work, you are not just a gatherer. You are a practitioner. You are applying a science, a system of knowledge refined over generations. Your actions are precise, deliberate. You choose only the healthiest plants. You take only what you need. You murmur the words of thanks your mother taught you, a habit that is less a prayer and more a sign of respect for the powerful life you are taking. The idea of a woman practicing medicine with such confidence was a direct challenge to the established order. The formal medical profession, centered in universities and guilds, was exclusively male. These university-trained physicians based their knowledge on ancient Latin and Greek texts, often with little practical, hands-on experience. They looked down on folk healers, herbalists, and midwives, dismissing them as uneducated practitioners of kitchen medicine. Historians are still uncovering the extent to which this kitchen medicine was not only effective but often safer than the aggressive bleeding and purging favored by the official doctors. You are a living embodiment of this unwritten, unaccompanied medical tradition. Back at the cave, you begin the preparations. You use a smooth, heavy stone to crush the willow bark, releasing its bitter, medicinal scent. You chop the meadowswort and yarrow, their different textures a familiar feeling in your hands. This is your domain. The cave, once a desperate refuge, has become your laboratory, your workshop. The fire is your tool, the stones your mortar and pestle. You look at the pile of prepared herbs, a potent combination of analgesic, anti-inflammatory, and diaphoretic properties. You know this will work, but a new thought enters your mind. The villagers are desperate. If this cure is successful, what will happen? Will they demand more? They try to force you to return the power you now hold. Is a dangerous thing. It brings not only the ability to heal but also the potential for new conflicts. A strange and little-known historical detail is the existence of Cunning-Folk, who were in some ways the mirror image of witches. They were rural practitioners who used a combination of folk medicine, charms and rituals to heal livestock, find lost objects, and tell fortunes. They were often respected and sought after, occupying a grey area between the church and outright paganism. A cunning woman might be paid to lift a curse that a witch was believed to have laid, and a cunning woman who fell out of favour with the community could easily find herself on the other side of the accusation. By offering to heal the sick, you are stepping into this precarious role, a position of power that is entirely dependent on the shifting fears and beliefs of others. You take a deep breath. You cannot control their reactions. You can only control your own actions. You will provide the cure, but on your terms. The meeting will happen at the edge of the forest, on the neutral ground between their world and yours. You will not enter their space, and they will not enter their space, and they will not enter yours. This is a negotiation, and you are setting the terms of the treaty. You wrap the prepared herbs in a large, clean leaf, tying it securely with a vine. It is a simple package, but it contains the power of life and death. As darkness falls, use it by your fire, the medicine bundle beside you. You are no longer the exile hiding in the shadows. You have been sought out. Your knowledge, once the source of your damnation, has become their only salvation. And in this strange, terrifying new dynamic, you, the woman with nothing, hold all the power. At the first hint of dawn, you are awake. The air is cold and sharp, and a thick mist clings to the ground, shrouding the forest in a ghostly silence. You take the bundle of herbs and the woolen blanket Rick gave you and make your way to the rendezvous point, the great oak tree at the edge of the woods. Flicker follows for a short distance, then sits and watches you go, a silent, knowing guardian. The oak is ancient, its massive branches like gnarled arms reaching into the grey sky. It stands as a silent sentinel between the wildness of the forest and the tamed, ordered fields of the village. This is your ground, the very threshold of your old life. You spread the blanket on the damp earth beneath the tree and sit, the medicine bundle in your lap. You are not hiding. You are waiting, calm and exposed. As the sun rises, burning the mist into glowing ribbons, you see them coming. It's the blacksmith, Leo's father, a large, powerful man who seems diminished and stooped in the morning light. He is carrying his daughter, a small, limp form wrapped in a thin blanket. Behind him, walking with hesitant, fearful steps, is his wife, the boy Leo clinging to her hand. They stop a respectful distance from the oak tree, as if it marks an invisible, impassable border. The blacksmith's face is a mask of exhaustion and grim pride. He will not meet your eyes. His wife, however, looks directly at you, her face a mess of terror, hope, and shame. The blacksmith gently lays his daughter down on the grass. She is pale, her skin slick with sweat, her breathing shallow and rapid. You can feel the heat radiating from her small body, even from where you use it. This is the fever, stark and terrifying. Without a word, you stand and approach them, placing the bundle of herbs on the ground halfway between you. You then retreat to your blanket. The message is clear: the transaction will happen on neutral ground. The blacksmith looks at the bundle, then at you, suspicion warring with desperation on his face. "What is this?" he grunts, his voice rough. The word, once so powerful, now sounds hollow and pathetic. "It is a cure," you say, your voice even uncold. "The physician with his books and blades could not help you. The priest with his prayers could not help you. You come to me. You will do as I say." You give them instructions, your voice clear and firm. The herbs are to be boiled in water. Boiled, you stress again, from the upper spring. The sick girl is to drink the tea 3 times a day. The steam from the pot should be used to clear her lungs. She should be kept warm, but not smothered. As you speak, you see a flicker of understanding and perhaps, for the first time, respect in the woman's eyes. This is not the chanting of spells. This is a practical, logical process. You are speaking the language of medicine, not magic. The change in perception from witch to healer or wise woman is a fascinating historical phenomenon. It often depended on results. If a person's remedies failed, it confirmed they were a charlatan or a malevolent witch. If they succeeded, especially when official medicine had failed, their status could shift dramatically. They might still be feared, but that fear would now be mingled with ungrudging respect. They became a source of power to be negotiated with, rather than an evil to be eradicated. This shift was rarely total or permanent. A single failed cure or a new village crisis could easily tip the scales back. The blacksmith's wife nudges him. He grunts again, then shoves a small iron pot and a folded, clean blanket across the grass towards you. "It is the payment you requested. The trade is made. Go now," you say, your voice leaving no room for argument, "and do exactly as I have told you." The blacksmith gathers his daughter into his arms. His wife picks up the precious bundle of herbs, and they retreat, walking backwards for a few steps as if leaving the presence of royalty, before turning and hurrying back towards the village. You are left alone under the great oak. You pick up your payment, the pot, a symbol of self-sufficiency, the blanket, a promise of warmth for the coming winter. You have done it. You have faced them, not as an outcast, but as a practitioner. You have given them a chance at salvation, but on your own terms. As you walk back towards the quiet solitude of your cave, you don't feel forgiveness. You feel a profound and weary sense of detachment. You have opened a door between your world and theirs, a door you never intended to open. You don't know if this act will bring you peace or more peril. You only know that you have reclaimed a part of yourself that they tried to burn away. You are the healer. Whether they call you witch or wise woman is no longer your concern. Your power does not come from their words, but from the earth beneath your feet and the knowledge in your hands. A week passes in silence. You don't return to the oak tree, and no one from the village ventures near your territory. You use the new iron pot to make a rich, nourishing stew from roots and a bit of dried meat, the simple efficiency of it a constant, quiet pleasure. The nights are colder now, and the extra blanket is a true comfort, a small bastion of warmth against the encroaching winter. You try to push the village from your mind to return to the simple, solitary rhythm of your life. You focus on reinforcing the small brush fence you built around the cave entrance to keep out the worst of the wind. You spend an entire day smoking the last of your snared rabbits, the scent clinging to your clothes and hair. But a thread of connection, however frayed, has been re-established, and you find your thoughts drifting back to the pale, feverish face of the blacksmith's daughter. Did the medicine work, or did they bungle the instructions? The answer comes one morning, not with a messenger, but with a silent offering. As you step out of your cave into the crisp morning air, you see it, placed carefully on a large, flat stone just at the edge of the clearing, the same stone where Leo had first called out to you. It's a small, lopsided loaf of dark bread, still faintly warm. Beside it is a wedge of hard cheese and a handful of dried apples. There is no one in sight. The forest is silent. It's a ghost offering, a tribute left for a forest spirit. You approach it cautiously, your eyes scanning the trees. Nothing. You pick up the bread. It's heavy and dense, made with barley flour. It's the baker's bread. Walter's bread, the man whose son's illness was the catalyst for your exile. The father of the child you were accused of cursing. The gesture is so laden with meaning, it feels heavier than its physical weight. This is their answer. The girl is alive. The fever has broken. From that day on, a new, unspoken ritual is established. Every few days, a small offering appears on the stone. Sometimes it's food, a bit of flour, a small jar of honey, a string of onions. Sometimes it's a practical item, a spool of linen thread, a new whetstone for your knife, a handful of tallow for making candles. They never try to see you. They never try to speak to you. They leave their tribute and disappear, respecting the invisible boundary you have drawn. It's a secret, almost sacred, transaction. You are their cunning woman now, therefore historical. They are paying you, not just for the cure you provided, but for the knowledge you possess, and perhaps, for your continued distance. It's a retainer for your services, and a bribe to keep the wild magic of the woods from spilling into their orderly, terrified world. This type of informal, non-confrontational relationship with feared or powerful figures has historical precedent. In many cultures, offerings were left for spirits, fairies, or gods at specific natural landmarks: a spring, a strangely shaped rock, or an ancient tree. It was a way of acknowledging a power outside the official religious structure and attempting to appease it. The villagers, consciously or not, are treating you in the same way. They have folded you into their cosmology, not as a human neighbor, but as a supernatural entity to be managed with tribute. A particularly strange niche of this history is the witch bottle. From the 16th and 17th centuries, archaeologists have found ceramic bottles buried under hearths and doorways. Inside is a bizarre collection of items: pins, nails, thorns, and, most disturbingly, urine. It's believed these were a form of counter-magic. A person who believed they were cursed by a witch would create one of these bottles, believing it would inflict pain on the witch or trap their malevolent spirit. What's happening with you is the inverse of that. Instead of trying to inflict harm through a secret ritual, they are trying to curry favor through secret gift. You accept the offerings. You have no pride in this matter. Their fear is your survival. The food supplements your foraging, allowing you to build up a small larder for the winter. The tools make your life easier. You are, in a strange way, once again a part of the village's economy, but with entirely new terms of trade. One day, among the offerings, you find a small, carefully folded piece of parchment. Paper is a rare and expensive commodity. You unfold it with trembling hands. On it, in crude, blocky letters drawn with a piece of charcoal, are two words: THANKYOU. You stare at the words. You don't know who wrote them. Perhaps the blacksmith's wife, who you suspect has more learning than most. Perhaps even Father Alaric, his rigid piety bent by the undeniable fact of your success where his had failed. It doesn't matter. It is an acknowledgement, a concession. You fold the parchment carefully and tuck it away in a dry crevice in the cave wall. It is a treaty, a sign that the war is over. It is not friendship. It is a fragile, carefully negotiated peace between the village that cast you out and the woman who became a power in the wilderness. You are still alone, but you are no longer just an exile. You are a force they must reckon with, one loaf of bread at a time. Winter arrives, blanketing the forest in a thick layer of snow. The world outside your cave becomes a study in whitened gray. The daily task of survival grows harder. Foraging becomes a matter of digging for tough, frozen roots and stripping the last of the rosy hips from their thorny branches. Your snares, now harder to set in the frozen ground, yield less. The offerings on the stone become more crucial than ever. They are your lifeline, the thread connecting your wild existence to the domestic world of granaries and storehouses. The offerings change with the season. There's less fresh food and more of what can be stored: sacks of dried beans, hard winter apples, a slab of salted pork that lasts you for weeks. These gifts are a constant, silent reminder of the bargain you struck. You are the village's secret, their hidden insurance policy against the encroaching darkness. During the long cold nights huddled by your fire, you have more time to think. The sharp edges of your anger and grief have been worn smooth by time and the simple, grinding necessity of staying alive. The memory of your old life feels distant, like a story told about someone else. You remember your cottage, your husband, the rhythms of village life, but the memories are muted, no longer carrying the power to wound you. You realize that the villagers, in their own way, are also moving on. They have a new narrative now. The story of the curse has been quietly replaced by the story of the cure. You, the witch who was cast out, have been recast in their collective memory. You are no longer the source of their problems, but a strange, powerful solution to them. Your crime has not been forgiven, it has, in a way, been forgotten, overwritten by a more useful and more potent legend. This process of historical revisionism within small communities is a subject of great interest to social historians. With no written records to hold them to a single version of events, a village's collective memory could be remarkably fluid, adapting to fit the needs of the present. An inconvenient truth like the fact that they nearly killed their only effective healer could be subtly altered. The sharp edges sanded off until a more palatable story emerged. We didn't cast her out. She chose to leave to commune with the forest spirits, and her power grew. Historians still debate how conscious this process was. Was it a deliberate, collective self-deception, or a more organic, unconscious smoothing of a difficult past? One afternoon, a rare winter thaw sets in, and you venture further than usual, checking a line of snares. Near the creek, you find new tracks in the melting snow. A man's boots. Large ones. Your heart seizes for a moment, the old fear returning. But the tracks are not moving towards your cave, they are heading away from it, back towards the village. Beside the tracks, stuck into the soft bark of a tree, is a single, perfect crow's feather. It's a strange, symbolic gesture. In the old folklore, the crow was a messenger, a creature that could travel between the world of the living and the world of spirits. It was a bird of secrets and omens. You have no idea who left it or why. Was it the blacksmith? A silent acknowledgement. Was it Leo, the boy, leaving a gift for the lady of the forest? Or was it someone else entirely, a secret ally you never knew had? This small, mysterious sign reinforces your new status. You are no longer just a woman. You are a symbol. Your identity has been shaped by the landscape, by your exile, by their fear, and now by their gratitude. A strange but documented aspect of medieval social dynamics was the concept of the useful outcast. Sometimes, an individual who was formerly outside the bounds of society, a leper, a hermit, even a hangman, could acquire a strange kind of social power. Because they were outside the normal rules, they could perform tasks or services that others couldn't or wouldn't. They were both reviled and necessary. You have stumbled into this role. You are useful to High Cross, not in spite of your exile, but because of it. Your distance, your otherness, is the very source of your power. You take the crow's feather back to your cave. It is dark and glossy, a sliver of the wild sky. You place it on the small rock shelf where you keep your most precious things: the tinderbox from Emmerich, a smooth heart-shaped stone your mother once gave you, and the folded parchment with its two crude words. Looking at these few objects, you realize how much you have changed. The woman who was driven from the village weeping and terrified is gone. The woman who huddled in this cave, consumed by loneliness and fear, is also gone. In their place is someone quieter, stronger, more self-possessed. You have lost a world, but you have found a resilience you never knew you possessed. The crime they accused you of, the witchcraft of your knowledge, has faded into irrelevance. The only judgment that matters now is your own, and by your own judgment, you have not only survived, you have prevailed. As the first thaws of spring begin to soften the frozen earth, a new impulse takes root in you. It's a desire not just to live, but to preserve. Your knowledge, the legacy passed down from your mother before her, feels both powerful and incredibly fragile. It lives only in your mind. If you were to die, it would die with you, a library of life-saving wisdom turned to dust. The thought is unbearable. You cannot let this knowledge vanish. It needs to be recorded. But you have no paper, no ink. The parchment from the villagers is a precious, singular treasure, not something to be used for practice. You need a different kind of book, a different kind of page. Your eyes fall upon the smooth, pale grey walls of your cave. The stone that has sheltered you will become your scroll. You begin to experiment. You find that the soft, crumbly reed ochre from the creek bed makes a fine, if faint, pigment when mixed with a little water or animal fat. But the best medium you discover is charcoal from your fire. It's dark, easy to make, and writes with a surprising clarity on the light-colored stone. So you begin your great work. Each day, after your chores are done, you spend an hour by the low afternoon sun, painstakingly drawing on the walls of your cave. You are not a skilled artist, but you are a careful observer. You draw the plants that have sustained you, capturing the unique shape of their leaves, the pattern of their veins, the way the flowers cluster on the stem. You draw a serrated willow leaf, the heart-shaped leaf of the burdock, the feathery foliage of the yarrow. Beside each drawing you create a system of symbols, a personal hieroglyphics of healing. A simple drawing of a sun means the plant thrives in dry, open areas. A wavy line means it's found near water. A small circle might mean the root is the useful part, while a drawing of a flower means the blossom is key. A flame symbol indicates it must be heated or boiled. A simple drawing of a person with lines radiating from their head means it's good for headaches. A drawing of a person clutching their stomach means it soothes an upset gut. This act of creating a written language from scratch, a pictographic system based on function and form, is a monumental intellectual leap. Historically, the transition from oral to written culture was a slow, complex process that transformed societies. You are compressing that entire evolution into a single, focused effort driven by the urgent need to preserve your legacy. The cave walls slowly transformed from blank stone into a living textbook. It is a catalogue of your world, a testament to your knowledge. Here is the drawing of the fox Flicker, his leg marked with a symbol for healing. Here is a crude map of the forest, showing the location of the hazelnut grove, the willow stand, the spring with the sweet water. Historians and archaeologists are still fascinated by the purpose of ancient cave paintings. Were they religious, a form of shamanistic ritual? Were they educational, a way to teach young hunters about their prey? Or were they simply art, a creative expression of the world as it was seen by our ancestors? The purpose of your drawings is clear and unambiguous. It is a textbook, a survival guide, a legacy. One of the more peculiar and debated aspects of folk magic is the use of written charms or sigils. Sometimes a wise woman would write a string of seemingly nonsensical words or symbols on a piece of parchment, which would then be worn by a person or hung in a barn to ward off evil or sickness. Some scholars believe these were remnants of older, forgotten languages or religious texts, their original meaning lost, but their perceived power remaining. Your own pictograms are the opposite. They are not the echoes of a lost language, but the birth of a new one, each symbol imbued with a clear, practical, and potent meaning. You work with a quiet, focused joy. This task gives a new purpose to your lonely existence. You are no longer just surviving day to day. You are building something that will last, something that might be found one day by someone else who is lost and in need of guidance. You are turning your prison into a library, your refuge into a monument. As you draw, you feel a connection to the long, unbroken line of women who held this knowledge before you. Their whispers, their teachings, are being given a physical form, etched in charcoal onto the ancient stone. You are not just recording information, you are honoring your ancestors. You are ensuring that their wisdom, which the world tried to extinguish as witchcraft, will endure silent, patient, in the heart of the mountain, waiting for a future student. The witch, a historian, her crime transformed into a sacred text. Years pass. The rhythm of your life, once a frantic scramble for survival, settles into a deep, quiet groove, as worn and familiar as the path from your cave to the spring. Winter melts into spring, spring blossoms into summer, summer fades into the golden melancholy of autumn. The seasons turn and you turn with them. Your hair is now streaked with silver, and your face is a roadmap of your life, etched with lines of hardship and resilience. Your body, though leaner and older, is strong, weary, and perfectly attuned to the world around you. You move through the forest not as an intruder, but as an integral part of its ecosystem, as much a native as the deer and the fox. Fricka, your first and most faithful companion, is long gone, having lived a full life before returning to the earth. But you are not entirely alone. The forest is full of life, and you have learned its language. And the offerings at the stone at the edge of the clearing continue, a constant, silent conversation with the world of humans. The nature of the offerings has changed over time. They are less about survival now and more about a strange, tentative kind of friendship. Sometimes, you find a small luxury, a few lumps of precious sugar wrapped in a leaf, a colorful ribbon, or even a small, stubby candle. These gifts are not for the lady of the forest anymore. They feel more personal, left for the woman who lives in the woods. You have become a legend, a local myth. Mothers in High Cross and the surrounding villages now use your story to frighten their children into behaving. Be good, they'll say, or the woman of the woods will come and get you. But it's a threat without real menace, more akin to a fairy tale. In the same breath, a farmer with a sick cow or a woman with a persistent cough might leave a small tribute on the stone, hoping for a bit of your strange, wild magic. You are both a cautionary tale and a source of hope, a witch and a saint, a monster and a healer. Your identity has been completely subsumed by the story the villagers have woven around you. The persistence of such local legends is a testament to the power of oral tradition. Long after the real facts of your exile have been forgotten, the story of the powerful woman in the forest endures. Historians often struggle to separate fact from fiction in these folk tales, as each generation adds its own layers of embellishment and meaning. Did a figure like you truly exist, or are you an amalgamation of several folk healers, a convenient narrative created to explain the unexplainable in your case? The legend and the reality are one and the same. One spring morning, you find a new kind of offering on the stone. It's a small, sickly-looking sapling, its roots wrapped in a damp cloth. Puzzled, you examine it. It's an apple tree, but its leaves are mottled and yellow, its branches weak. It's a plea for a different kind of healing, not for a human or an animal, but for the land itself. You take the sapling back to your cave. You know what to do. You prepare a rich compost of rotted leaves and forest soil. You find a sunny, sheltered spot and carefully plant the tree, pruning away the diseased branches. You make a special tea from nettles, a potent fertilizer, and water its roots. It is a slow, patient work of cultivation, an act of faith in the future. This act symbolizes your ultimate transformation. You are no longer just using the forest to survive, you are actively nurturing it, cultivating it, becoming a steward of its health. Your knowledge is expanded from simple foraging to a form of primitive agriculture and land management. A strange and little-known belief in some parts of medieval Europe was that of the spirit of the grain. They believed a spiritual entity resided in the fields, and the success of the harvest depended on keeping this spirit happy. Elaborate rituals were often performed during planting and harvesting to honor it. By asking you to heal their sick tree, the villagers are, in their way, treating you as the embodiment of this spirit, a genius loci, the protective spirit of a place. They have elevated you from a simple outcast to a local deity of sorts, a goddess of the woods and its bounty. Years later, the apple tree is tall and strong, its branches heavy with fruit each autumn. The apples are small and tart, but they are crisp and full of life. You always leave a small pile of them on the offering stone, and they always disappear by the next morning. It's a silent, fruitful conversation. You never see them, and they never see you. The boundary is respected. You hear whispers carried on the wind from the woodcutters or travelers who pass on the far track, of the wise woman of High Cross Forest who can cure sickness and make barren trees fruit again. They never connect this powerful, mythical figure with the terrified young widow they drove from their village with stones and curses so long ago. And that you think is for the best. You have become your own story, a legend written not in words but in deeds, in herbs, in charcoal on a cave wall, and in the shade of a thriving apple tree. The final season of your life arrives as gently as a leaf falling from a tree. You feel it not as a sudden sickness or a sharp pain, but as a slow, quiet fading, a gentle loosening of the ties that bind you to the world. Your steps are slower, your breath shorter. The daily tasks of survival, once performed with an easy, practiced rhythm, now require a conscious effort. You spend more and more time inside the cave, your great work on the stone walls now complete. The pictograms and drawings cover every available surface, a silent, sprawling epic of your life and your knowledge. It is a testament to survival, a library of the earth. You run your wrinkled fingers over the charcoal lines, tracing the shape of a yarrow leaf, the symbol for a fever, the crude drawing of a fox. You have poured your entire being onto these walls. Your legacy is secure. One afternoon, a young woman appears at the edge of the clearing. She is not a villager. She is dressed in the simple, travel-stained robes of a novice from a convent, her face young and earnest. She tells you she has heard the stories of the wise woman of the forest and has sought you out. Her convent, a day's journey away, runs a small infirmary for the poor, and she wishes to learn more of the healing arts, of the remedies that the earth provides, not just the prayers that are written in their books. For the first time in decades, you invite someone into your world. You let her pass the offering stone, cross the invisible boundary. You lead her into your cave. She gasps when she sees the walls, her eyes wide with awe. She doesn't see witchcraft. She sees a sacred text. She recognizes the plants you have drawn, but she does not know all their uses. You spend the last days of your life teaching her. You point to the drawings, explaining your symbols, sharing the wisdom passed down from your mother. You speak of the willow for pain, the comfrey for broken bones, the nettle for tired blood. The young novice, whose name is Hannah, listens, her face a study in concentration, scribbling her own notes onto a precious sheet of parchment she has brought with her. This passing of knowledge from a folk healer to a member of a religious order, though perhaps rare, is not without historical plausibility. Many monastic orders, particularly in their early days, were repositories of practical as well as spiritual knowledge. Monks and nuns often tended extensive herb gardens and provided medical care for their local communities. While there was often tension between church doctrine and folk practice, there could also be overlap and a pragmatic exchange of information. The historical debate continues over how much of what we consider monastic medicine was actually adapted from local, often female, folk healers. Your final act is to bridge this divide, to pour your unwritten, female lineage knowledge into the literate, male-dominated world of formal record-keeping. The young novice, whose name is Hannah, asks you about your life. You do not tell her the story of your exile, of the fire and the accusations. That story belongs to a woman who no longer exists. Instead, you tell her the story of the forest. You tell her of the fox, of the peddler, of the changing seasons. You tell her the story written on the walls of your cave. On the third day, you feel a deep, final weariness settle over you. You know your time is short. You ask Hannah to help you outside to a spot beneath the strong, healthy apple tree you planted so long ago. You lie back on a bed of soft moss, the woolen blanket from Emmerich tucked around you. The sun is setting, painting the sky in hues of soft pink and gentle gold. The air is cool and smells of damp earth and distant wood smoke. You can hear the gentle murmur of the creek, the whisper of the wind in the leaves. It is a peaceful sound. You look at the world you have made for yourself, the sturdy cave, the thriving tree, the vast, benevolent forest. You think of the people of High Cross, whose lives you touched from a distance, their hatred slowly, miraculously, transformed into a grudging respect. You have lived a hard life, a lonely life, but it has been a full one. You have wrested it from the jaws of despair and shaped it with your own hands. You close your eyes. You are no longer the witch. You are no longer the outcast. You are not even a legend. You are simply a woman, at the end of her days, at peace with the world, her knowledge passed on, her story etched in stone. Your last breath leaves you not as a sigh of regret, but as a quiet, contented release, dissolving into the twilight of the forest that became your truest home, the quiet reflection. And so you drift. The sharp edges of the story begin to soften, melting away like mist in the morning sun. The scent of wood smoke and damp earth fades, replaced by the quiet, familiar scent of your own room. The feeling of the rough blanket gives way to the softness of your own, the cold stone floor replaced by the comfort of your bed. The world of Highcross of the cave in the forest recedes, becoming a distant echo, a half-remembered dream. You are floating now in that gentle, peaceful space between wakefulness and sleep. The story is over, but its feelings remain, a quiet sense of resilience, a gentle strength. You can feel the calm of the forest settling over you, the slow, steady rhythm of the turning seasons becoming the rhythm of your own breathing. Inhale, the quiet hope of spring. Exhale, the peaceful release of autumn. There are no more challenges to face, no more dangers to overcome. There is only this deep, profound stillness. The silence of the cave is now the silence of your own peaceful mind. The warmth of the small fire is the warmth spreading through your own tired limbs, a heavy, pleasant drowsiness that pulls you gently downwards, into the deep, soft darkness of sleep. The journey is over. It is time to rest. You have found your sanctuary, your safe harbor for the night. And here in this quiet space, all is well. The end of the article. Good night.